Now you're probably going to think what I'm about to tell you is bullshit, but I swear to God it's true. In 1970, a pair of Americans who were friends of Ivan's, George Wenn and Ray Bokelman, vowed if Ivan won the World Speedway Championship for the third year in a row, that they would have his bike gold-plated. He won, and they delivered on their promise. It cost them $500,000, and here it is, pictured with Ivan. To this day, he remains the only rider ever to win 3 World Speedway Championships in a row. Ivan is considered to be the best motorcycle speedway rider ever in the history of the sport. Speedway originated during the 1920s in New South Wales, Australia. The first official World Championships were held in 1936. Ivan won the World Championships in 1968, 69, 1970, 72, 77 and 1979. In total, he won more than 1,000 international events in 60 countries. He was renowned as a fast starter, so let's take a look at him in action.
Away this time, and it's Major just by a hair's breadth of the corner. Gordon Kennett trying the outside run on him. Olsen's back in third place. Major leads it. Kennett in second place, going hard under him there. Major is locked up on the inside there. Kennett trying to force a hole through on the inside. That's his strength. But now it's Major in front. Kennett in second place. Here he runs over the back of him. Olsen's back in third place. And the world champion isn't going to give up his title as now Olsen goes charging under Kennett. Really, it is getting a bit hairy. And Olsen now chasing after Major. This is a bit more like it. Now Kennett going back under Olsen. Major still in front. He's not going very quickly. And Olsen trying the outside running. Kennett trying the inside into the pits corner. Something's got to give here. And it's Ivan Major. Down he goes. Olsen has moved into the front. Kennett's in second place. Major is still down. He's right out onto the pit gate. So is he in danger? The race continues.
Often thought of as the poor man's sport, speedway bikes are in fact very quick. Modern championship bikes have a 500cc 4-stroke 4-valve single-cylinder engine. They run on methanol and produce upwards of 80 horsepower. But because they only weigh about 80 kilos, the power to weight ratio means they can accelerate to 100 kilometres an hour in just 2.5 seconds. About the same as a Formula 1 racing car or a superbike. Take a look at this short clip. A speedway bike up against a Suzuki superbike. Speedway bikes have no brakes, but the methanol allows the engines to have a very high compression ratio. To stop the bike, you simply shut the throttle off and the engine does the braking. They have no gearbox, just one fixed gear, which is adjusted by changing the size of the rear wheel sprocket. And this is what it's like to ride one. In 1968, Kim Newcomb moved to Germany with his wife. and he started work at the Koenig boat motor factory. It was here where he took on the project of building a motorcycle powered by an outboard engine. The engine itself was a 494cc, 4-cylinder, 2-stroke water-cooled boxer. His first prototype was completed late in 1969, and the bike initially produced 68 horsepower, but power output was soon improved to 75 horsepower. Let's take a bit of a look at what it was like to ride the Koenig 500. Australian rider John Dodds was signed to ride the Koenig for the 1971 500cc World Championship season, but the bike proved to be extremely unreliable and it only managed to finish one race for the whole of the season. Dodd became tired of the constant breakdowns and left Koenig to ride for Yamaha. For the 1972 season, even though he was a novice to road racing and a one-man operation, Kim decided to ride the bike himself. He had never competed on asphalt, and he would be competing against the likes of Phil Reed and Giacomo Agostini. He quickly earned himself an FIM licence, and was now mechanic, engineer and rider. He finished third in his very first race, beaten by two MV Augustas. MV Augusta and Giacomo Agostini had dominated 500cc motorcycle racing since the mid-60s. Kim started 8 times during the 1972 season, finishing with 2 third places and failing to finish on 3 other occasions. Even so, by this time the Koenig had developed a reputation for being lightning fast, or as and able to pass the MV Augustas down the straight. In 1973, Kim had developed a new frame. The bike weighed a mere 251 pounds, or 114 kilos, and it had even more horsepower, 85 horsepower in fact. And by now, he also had an Australian named Rod Tingate helping him as a mechanic. Team Koenig was now a team of 4. Kim himself, Janine, his wife, Mark, his young son, and now Rod. The 1973 season started well for Kim. He finished 5th in France, 3rd in Austria, but he failed to finish the Grand Prix in Germany. His next race start was in the Yugoslavian Grand Prix, where he set the fastest lap. He went on to win the race, and he also took the lead in the World Championship. But very sadly, just 2 months later, Kim passed away due to an accident which occurred in a non-championship race at Silverstone. Even though he didn't finish the season, he still took out 2nd place for the 500cc World Championship that year. He and the Koenig were the very first to challenge the dominance of the MV Augustas, and in total contrast to his main competitors, Kim Newcomb developed, built, maintained and successfully rode a motorcycle which was built around a boat motor, at the very highest level of competition, and on a shoestring budget. His incredible story brings a total new meaning to the term underdog. His short but brilliant career is covered in a documentary called Love, Speed and Loss. If you haven't seen this documentary, I strongly recommend you doing so, but you might need a box of tissues, so be warned.
Would it have won the World Championship? Yes, it would, of course.
During the 1980s, John Britton had a dream. His dream was to build a world-beating motorcycle. He wanted it to be lighter, more streamlined and faster than any bike before it. He, plus his very clever and talented team, only ever planned to build just the 10 bikes. Their idea was to prove the design by success on the racetracks, then move on to producing road bikes.
You don't have one spare part, do you?
No. We made 2 bikes, and we used to have some spare parts, and we've turned them into a second bike.
Unfortunately, John's untimely death due to melanoma cancer meant that this dream never eventuated. The bike he and his team manufactured was a groundbreaking design. It featured extensive use of carbon fibre strands at a time before this material was widely used. The wheels, swing arm, front girder type forks and what little framework there was were all hollow. To improve aerodynamics, the bike was designed with a radiator underneath the seat. It was fed by a ram air system from the front of the fairing, which passed through ducts underneath the tank through to the radiator. No two Britons were the same. He designed 2 different 60-degree V-twin versions. Some had 4 valves and some had 5 valves per cylinder. The exhaust pipes emerged from each valve port. I mean, even the exhaust system's a work of art, just take a look at it. The 1000cc produced 160 horsepower, while the 1100cc produced about 170 horsepower. The bike proved itself a world beater by winning multiple international races and breaking numerous motorcycle speed records. Unfortunately, John died in 1995, which leaves us to wonder what might have happened if he'd been able to carry on and develop the Britain motorcycle. The first Ice Speedway World Championships were held in 1966. It is considered as a very dangerous sport to participate in. The tyres of these machines have 28mm long spikes on both front and rear tyres. As the spikes can cause severe injuries to the riders, they use special protective guards over the wheels to help prevent injuries. The riders are known as Ice Gladiators, and unlike normal speedway, you won't see these men broadsiding their bikes around the corners. The spikes allow them to lean to absolutely incredible angles, while cornering at speeds of up to 100 km an hour. While the bikes may look very similar to normal speedway bikes, there are a number of significant differences. They have a 2-speed gearbox, and the mostly Jawa 500cc engine shoes only have 2 valves, and they are mounted upright so they can use a more rigid frame, because contrary to what you might think, the ice tracks are very rough, especially after they get chopped up. The bikes also have a longer wheelbase, swing arm resuspension and upside down front forks. Being a winter sport, it is mostly popular in the north and eastern of Europe, as well as North America. Russia's Nikolai Krasnikov is the most successful ice speedway racer of all time, winning 8 world championships, all of them in a row.